It seems like every day there's some new scientific breakthrough being announced.
Yeah, it can be a lot to keep up with, especially in a field like biotech. Things move so fast.
For sure. One thing I've been seeing a lot lately is this RNA sequencing popping up everywhere.
You're right, it really is. It's making a huge difference in so many areas.
So let's break it down for our listeners. What exactly is RNA sequencing and why is it suddenly the hot topic?
Imagine trying to understand how a cell works, right?
Okay.
DNA is the blueprint, sure.
Right.
But it's the RNA that actually carries out the instructions, translates the genetic code into action.
Makes sense.
RNA sequencing, that lets us read those RNA molecules in the cell at a specific time, like a snapshot of what the cell's doing right then.
So instead of just knowing the gene the cell has, we see which ones are actually being used.
Exactly. And that tells us so much: how cells function, how they react to their environment, even how they change when there's disease.
Powerful stuff. And this isn't just theoretical anymore, right? I'm seeing real-world applications popping up.
Absolutely. For example, in personalized medicine, Foundation Medicine and Sumitomo Pharma, they're using RNA sequencing to make personalized treatments for acute leukemia.
How does that work?
Well, acute leukemia is not one disease, right? It's a whole group of cancers affecting red cells.
Right.
And each patient's leukemia can have its own unique mutations that are making it grow.
So how does RNA sequencing help with that?
By analyzing the RNA in the patient's leukemia cells, doctors can pinpoint the exact mutations at play. Then they can choose the most effective therapies, the ones that target those specific mutations.
Wow. So it's tailoring treatment to each individual patient's cancer.
Precisely. Moving away from a one-size-fits-all approach and towards something much more personalized, hopefully much more effective, too.
Remarkable. But this isn't limited to cancer, is it? What other areas are being impacted?
Well, let's take our sense of touch. We take it for granted, but it's so fundamental to the human experience.
Right.
And we're only starting to understand how complex it really is.
So where does RNA sequencing come in?
Scientists recently used it to identify 16, that's right, 16 unique types of nerve cells involved in our sense of touch.
16. Just for touch. That's a lot more than I would have thought.
It shows just how intricate our nervous system is. They were able to tell them apart by looking at the specific genes each type of cell was expressing, kind of like a fingerprint for each type.
Incredible. But why is it so important to map out all these different types of nerve cells?
This has huge implications for treating nerve damage, even for building better prosthetics. Imagine a prosthetic limb that could actually feel.
That's wild. That's moving into sci-fi territory.
It is. Understanding touch at this level is key to making that happen.
Wow. And this is all thanks to RNA sequencing.
It is. And there's more. What about brain science?
Oh yeah, I was reading about some of that.
The Southwest Research Institute is using RNA sequencing data to track brain cell development over time.
So we're not just looking at a static picture of the brain anymore, we're seeing it in action.
Exactly. They're developing a computational method that uses this data to basically create a time-lapse of brain development, all at the cellular level.
Mind-blowing. What could we use that for?
Well, think about disorders like autism, which we think stem from disruptions in brain development. This technology could help us pinpoint when and where those disruptions happen.
Leading to earlier diagnosis, maybe even new therapies.
Right? It's a game changer. And then there's cancer diagnostics. Did you see the study where they used RNA sequencing to find mutations in breast cancer cells?
I think I saw that one.
And they did it without needing a normal sample to compare against?
Wait, how is that even possible? Don't you need a baseline to compare to?
It's really clever. Basically, scientists have been building massive databases of RNA sequencing data from healthy cells.
So they're using that as a reference.
Exactly, like a dictionary of normal RNA activity. By comparing the cancer cell's RNA to this dictionary, they can spot the mutations, even without a sample from the same patient.
Wow. That could lead to much earlier, more accurate diagnoses. This is huge.
It is. Imagine being able to detect cancer before any symptoms even show up.
Like an early warning system.
Yes. This technology is truly transformative, but it makes you wonder, why the second boom in RNA sequencing? Why is it taking center stage now?
That's a good question. What's driving this?
It's not just one thing. It's a few key advances coming together. First, the sequencing technology itself. It's gotten much faster, more accurate, and cheaper.
So it's easier and more affordable to generate this data.
Right. But that's only part of it. We've also seen a huge jump in computational power, plus all these sophisticated analytical tools being developed, things like machine learning.
So it's not just the data, it's what we can do with it.
Precisely. Machine learning can analyze tons of RNA sequencing data to find patterns and insights that humans would never see on their own.
So it's like having a super-powered research assistant, crunching numbers at warp speed?
Exactly. It's this convergence of technologies that's putting RNA sequencing at the forefront.
It's amazing how different fields are coming together to push things forward. Feels like we're just at the beginning of something really big.
You're absolutely right. This is just the tip of the iceberg. We're entering a new era of scientific discovery, and RNA sequencing is going to play a leading role.
It's exciting, but also a little overwhelming, all the possibilities. But let's break this down a bit further.
Good idea. Let's get into some specific examples of how this is all working in different areas.
Sounds good. Where should we start?
Well, let's go back to that breast cancer study, the one where they found mutations without a normal sample.
Okay, I'm interested to hear more about how that works.
First, maybe a quick reminder about mutations and what they mean for cancer.
Yeah, a recap would be helpful.
Mutations are changes in the DNA sequence that can mess with how a cell works, and sometimes those changes lead to uncontrolled growth, which is basically cancer.
Right, right. So how does RNA sequencing help us see these mutations?
Remember, RNA carries out the instructions from DNA. If there's a mutation in the DNA, we can often see it reflected in the RNA.
So by analyzing the RNA, we're looking for clues.
Exactly. And in that breast cancer study, they figured out a way to compare the RNA from cancer cells to that database of normal RNA activity.
And they're looking for anything out of the ordinary.
It's like trying to find a misspelling, but you don't have the original document. You can still spot it if you have a good dictionary to check against.
That's a great way to think about it. So this database of RNA activity is like a dictionary for cancer researchers.
Precisely. They're looking for words that don't belong. And by doing that, they can find mutations that might be driving the cancer's growth.
Incredible. What makes this so different from how we usually do things?
We used to need a tumor sample and a normal sample from the same patient to compare. This new method skips that.
So it could lead to much earlier diagnoses.
Exactly. It could revolutionize cancer screening, especially for cancers that are often caught late.
This is incredibly promising. But I imagine there must be challenges too, right?
Of course. One big one is just the sheer volume of data you get from RNA sequencing. It's like drinking from a fire hose.
I can imagine. How do researchers make sense of all that?
That's where those computational tools come in. Machine learning algorithms can sift through mountains of data to find the meaningful stuff.
Like that superpowered research assistant we were talking about.
Exactly. Machine learning is key to unlocking the potential of RNA sequencing for cancer and beyond.
It's amazing that we can study cancer at this level of detail.
It's like having a microscope that lets you see the inner workings of each cancer cell.
And that level of detail is so valuable, right?
Absolutely. If you understand the specific mutations driving a patient's cancer, you can design treatments that target them more effectively. That's personalized medicine in action.
Like a personalized roadmap for treatment.
Precisely. RNA sequencing is helping us move away from one-size-fits-all medicine and towards a more precise approach.
This is all fascinating. But I'm sure our listeners are wondering, what does this mean for me? Why should they care?
You're right. Let's connect the dots.
Help me understand why this matters.
RNA sequencing isn't just some scientific curiosity. It's a technology that could change our lives in huge ways.
Give me the big picture.
Think about healthcare. Earlier and more accurate cancer diagnoses, treatments tailored to your genes, maybe even cures for diseases we can't treat now.
Those are some pretty significant impacts.
And it goes beyond healthcare. RNA sequencing is also helping us understand basic biology, how our brains develop, how our senses work, what makes us human.
Like we're getting a whole new level of understanding of ourselves and the world.
Exactly, and that knowledge could lead to advances in so many fields: biotech, agriculture, even environmental science.
Wow, the possibilities are endless. It's hard not to get excited about all of this.
It is a very dynamic and rapidly evolving field.
It's like we're on the edge of a whole new frontier of discovery.
And that's what makes it so thrilling, right? The sense of wonder and the endless possibilities.
Absolutely. I'm ready to hear more about how RNA sequencing is being used in all these different areas.
Well, let's shift our focus to the brain. Remember that research at the Southwest Research Institute we talked about?
The one about creating a time lapse of brain development. Tell me more about that.
It's groundbreaking work. They're using RNA sequencing to track the activity of individual brain cells over time.
So instead of a snapshot, we get to see the whole movie of how the brain develops.
Exactly. It's like having a window into the processes that shape our brains from the very beginning.
That must be so valuable for understanding how the brain works.
Absolutely. We're getting insights into how neural networks form, how different cell types interact, how the brain adapts to new experiences.
And I imagine this could be helpful for studying disorders like autism, right?
You're exactly right. We think autism involves disruptions in brain development. This technology could help pinpoint when and where those disruptions occur, maybe even lead to new treatments.
That's incredible. It seems like RNA sequencing is opening up a whole new world of possibilities for understanding and treating brain disorders.
It really is, and this is just the start. This technology could help us solve the mysteries of all kinds of neurological and psychiatric conditions.
It's mind-blowing to think that we can now study the brain in such detail.
Like having a high-resolution map zoomed in on individual neurons and how they connect.
It's a game changer for neuroscience.
Absolutely. And it's all thanks to RNA sequencing and the brilliant researchers using it to unlock the secrets of the brain.
I'm eager to hear more about how this technology is being used to study specific brain disorders.
Sounds like a great place to pick up next time we can dive into the exciting world of RNA sequencing in neuroscience.
I can't wait. Welcome back. Last time we were talking about how RNA sequencing is shaking things up in neuroscience.
A real revolution. Let's look at a specific example.
Okay, go for it.
Alzheimer's disease, a devastating neurodegenerative disorder. Millions of people around the world are affected, and it's been a real puzzle for scientists for decades.
Yeah, it's a heartbreaking disease for sure. Huge impact on individuals and families.
Absolutely. But now RNA sequencing is providing some new clues about what's going on at the molecular level.
Interesting. How so?
Well, they compare the RNA profiles of healthy brain cells with cells from people with Alzheimer's.
Oh, so they can spot the differences in gene expression.
Right, they're looking for genes that are either more active or less active in the Alzheimer's brains, and these changes can tell us a lot about the biological processes that are disrupted in the disease.
That makes sense. But how does that translate into actual treatments?
By pinpointing those disrupted pathways, researchers can start to identify potential targets for drugs.
So you could develop a drug that tries to correct those abnormalities.
Exactly. RNA sequencing is bringing us closer to targeted therapies for Alzheimer's, a disease that right now has no cure.
That's incredibly promising. It's like RNA sequencing is giving us a whole new way to look at and understand the brain.
It's like shining a light into the dark corners of the brain, showing us details we've never seen before.
Amazing that we can study the brain at such a fine level.
And it's not just about diseases. We can use RNA sequencing to understand how the brain develops and adapts throughout life.
Really, tell me more about that.
Think about learning a new skill or forming a memory. Those experiences actually leave molecular traces in our brain cells.
So our brains are constantly changing and rewiring themselves.
Exactly. And with RNA sequencing, we can track those changes, see the dance of genes and proteins that make learning and memory possible.
Fascinating. It's like we're getting a glimpse into what makes us who we are.
It's true. It's a powerful tool for understanding the human mind. And it's not limited to humans, by the way. RNA sequencing is also helping us understand brain development in other species.
Oh, like what?
Well, zebrafish, for example, they've become a popular model organism for studying brain development.
What's special about zebrafish?
Their embryos are transparent,
Wow.
so you can actually watch the brain develop in real time.
That's incredible. You can actually see the brain wiring itself up.
Exactly, and they combine that with RNA sequencing data to get an even deeper understanding of the genetics and molecular mechanisms involved.
It's like watching a movie of brain development with subtitles explaining all the molecular details.
Great analogy. This research could have a huge impact, not just for understanding developmental disorders, but maybe even for developing new therapies.
Amazing that we can study brain development in such detail, both in humans and in other animals.
It's a revolution. RNA sequencing is transforming our understanding of the brain, from the very beginning of development to its amazing ability to learn and adapt.
It makes you realize how much we still don't know about this incredibly complex organ.
Absolutely. As RNA sequencing technology continues to advance, who knows what we'll discover next.
I'm excited to see where this all leads, but before we go any further with RNA sequencing, I think it's important to talk about the ethical considerations.
You're absolutely right. It's a powerful tool, and we have to use it responsibly.
Exactly. We need to be thinking about things like privacy and data security, making sure this information is used for good, not for harm.
Those are critical concerns. We need open and honest discussions about the ethics of RNA sequencing, and we need safeguards to prevent misuse.
It's a good reminder that scientific progress should never come at the expense of ethical principles.
Well said. This technology should benefit everyone, not just a select few. We don't want to see existing inequalities made worse.
We have to strive for equity and fairness as we navigate this exciting but complex new world of RNA sequencing and personalized medicine.
Our goal should be to improve human health and well-being, while also upholding the highest ethical standards.
I couldn't agree more. So let's shift gears a bit and talk about how RNA sequencing is changing personalized medicine. We touched on this earlier, how it's helping to tailor cancer treatments to each individual.
Yes, let's delve into that further. There's so much potential there.
I'm ready to hear more. How is RNA sequencing changing healthcare?
Imagine treatments that are truly personalized. Not one size fits all, but customized to your unique genetic and molecular profile.
That sounds like science fiction.
It might have seemed that way once, but RNA sequencing is making it a reality.
I'm intrigued. How does it work?
By analyzing the RNA in your cells, doctors can learn so much about your individual biology, your predisposition to diseases, how you're likely to respond to certain treatments.
So it's like a personalized health roadmap based on your own DNA.
Exactly. That information can help doctors make better decisions about your healthcare, from prevention to treatment strategies.
I'm starting to see the potential here, but can you give me a concrete example? How is RNA sequencing actually being used to personalize medicine?
Absolutely. Let's talk about immunotherapy.
Immunotherapy, I've heard of that. It's using your own immune system to fight cancer, right?
That's it. But it doesn't work for everyone. Some people respond really well, others not so much.
So how does RNA sequencing help?
It can help predict who's most likely to benefit from immunotherapy. By analyzing the RNA in the tumor cells, doctors can look for specific markers, biomarkers, that tell them whether the immune system is likely to attack those cancer cells.
So it's like a screening test to see if immunotherapy is even a good option.
Precisely. It saves time and resources, and it can prevent patients from going through treatments that are unlikely to help them.
That's amazing. It's like taking the guesswork out of cancer treatment.
In a way, yes. RNA sequencing gives us a deeper understanding of each patient's cancer, so we can make treatment more precise and more effective.
Incredibly promising. But this goes beyond cancer, right? What other areas are seeing the benefits of personalized medicine with RNA sequencing?
You're right, it's not just oncology. We're seeing applications in cardiology, neurology, infectious diseases.
Can you give me some examples?
In cardiology, they're using RNA sequencing to identify people at risk for heart disease. They analyze RNA from blood samples and look for subtle changes in gene expression that might signal an increased risk of a heart attack or stroke.
Like an early warning system.
Exactly. You can intervene early, maybe prevent or delay the onset of heart disease. And in neurology, RNA sequencing is being used to personalize treatments for conditions like multiple sclerosis and Parkinson's disease.
It seems like the common thread here is using RNA sequencing to get a deeper understanding of the individual patient's biology, and that leads to more precise, more effective treatments.
You got it. That's the core of personalized medicine. RNA sequencing is a powerful tool that's driving this whole new approach to healthcare.
This is all so exciting. But I imagine there must be challenges with personalized medicine too, right?
Of course, one of the biggest is access and affordability. These personalized treatments based on RNA sequencing can be expensive, and they might not be available to everyone.
That's a crucial point. We have to make sure everyone benefits from these advances, not just those who can afford it.
Absolutely. We need equity and fairness in healthcare. Everyone deserves the chance to benefit from personalized medicine powered by RNA sequencing.
A good reminder that scientific progress has to go hand in hand with social justice.
Couldn't agree more. We need to work together to use these powerful technologies to create a healthier and more just world for everyone.
An important message to keep in mind as we continue exploring the world of RNA sequencing.
Absolutely. Speaking of exploring, let's dive into another fascinating area, aging research.
Okay, I'm all ears. How is RNA sequencing being used to study aging?
We've talked a lot about diseases, but RNA sequencing is also amazing for studying basic biological processes like aging.
Interesting. What kind of insights is it giving us into how we age?
Well, we can track changes in gene expression as we get older. By comparing RNA from young and old cells, researchers can identify genes that become more or less active with age.
So we're building a molecular map of aging.
Exactly. This map can tell us why certain tissues and organs start to decline, and maybe even help us find ways to slow down or reverse the aging process.
It sounds like science fiction is becoming reality.
It's still early days, but the potential is huge. RNA sequencing is giving us a glimpse into the molecular mechanisms of aging, and that knowledge could lead to some incredible breakthroughs.
I'm fascinated. Can you give me some specific examples?
Sure. One area of focus is something called cellular senescence.
Cellular senescence, what's that?
It's basically when cells stop dividing and become kind of dysfunctional. These senescent cells build up as we age and contribute to a lot of age-related diseases.
So they're like zombie cells, hanging around and causing trouble.
That's a good way to put it. And RNA sequencing is helping researchers figure out what drives these cells to become senescent and maybe even find ways to get rid of them or reprogram them.
That's amazing. It sounds like we're close to unlocking the secrets of aging.
We're making incredible progress, and RNA sequencing is playing a key role in this whole new frontier of research.
It's exciting to think that we might one day be able to slow down or even reverse aging.
It's a tantalizing possibility, but aging is complex, lots of factors involved. There's no magic bullet.
Of course, but it's amazing to see how RNA sequencing is deepening our understanding of this fundamental part of life.
It is. And as the technology keeps advancing, who knows what incredible discoveries await us.
It's been an amazing journey so far, exploring the world of RNA sequencing. It seems like this technology is impacting every area of biology, personalized medicine, brain science, aging research.
It's truly transformative, and we've really only just scratched the surface of its potential.
I'm excited to see what the future holds. How will RNA sequencing continue to shape our understanding of life and our ability to treat diseases?
I'm excited too. It's a dynamic and rapidly evolving field. Who knows what breakthroughs are just around the corner?
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today. Maybe it's time to take a break and let our listeners process all this information. We can pick up where we're left off in the next part of our deep dive.
Sounds good to me. There's so much more to explore, like how RNA sequencing is being used in agriculture and environmental science.
That sounds fascinating. I can't wait. Welcome back to our deep dive into RNA sequencing. We've covered a lot of ground, haven't we?
It's been quite a journey. Personalized medicine, brain science, aging research, and in every area, RNA sequencing is making a huge impact.
It really is amazing to see one technology making such a difference in so many different fields.
Well, it all comes back to RNA. That molecule is at the heart of this whole revolution.
You're right. Maybe a quick reminder for our listeners about why RNA is so important.
Sure, we talked about how DNA is the blueprint, right?
Right, the instruction manual.
But it's RNA that actually puts those instructions into action. It translates that genetic code.
So DNA is the architect's plans, and RNA is the construction crew making it all happen.
Exactly. By analyzing RNA, we get to see which genes are actually being used, how they're working together, and how that affects the cells and the whole organism.
And that's how we can understand things like brain development or how diseases work.
Exactly. RNA sequencing lets us see that whole world of gene expression in action. We can study these processes in more detail than ever before.
Like a superpowered microscope, showing us the inner workings of life itself.
That's a great way to put it, and that's what makes RNA sequencing so powerful for scientific discovery. It's helping us understand the most fundamental mysteries of life.
It really is incredible, and as we've seen, the applications are so varied.
You're right. We've talked about personalized medicine, brain science, and aging, but there's so much more. Agriculture, environmental science, even forensic science are using RNA sequencing.
Wow, it seems like the possibilities are endless. Tell me more about how it's being used in those areas.
Well, take agriculture, for instance. RNA sequencing is helping breeders develop new crops that are more resilient, resistant to pests, diseases, even harsh weather conditions.
So helping farmers produce more food, even with limited resources.
Exactly. By understanding the genes that control things like drought tolerance or pest resistance, we can use RNA sequencing to identify and select for those traits in new crop varieties.
That's amazing. It could be a real game changer for global food security.
It definitely has the potential. And then there's environmental science. RNA sequencing is helping us understand the impacts of pollution and climate change.
How so?
Well, researchers can analyze RNA from different organisms in different environments and track how their gene expression changes in response to things like pollution or rising temperatures.
So it's like taking the planet's pulse at a molecular level.
I like that. And this information is so valuable. It can tell us how ecosystems are adapting to these changes and even identify species that are most at risk.
Really valuable for conservation efforts.
Absolutely. And it's not just about the impact of human activity. RNA sequencing can also help us discover brand new species and reveal the incredible biodiversity of our planet.
It's amazing to think there's still so much out there to discover.
There really is. RNA sequencing is like a new lens that shows us the world in a whole new way. We're seeing those intricate connections that make life on Earth possible.
Reminds us that we're all connected.
Exactly, and we have to protect that biodiversity for future generations.
So well said. This has been an incredible journey, exploring the world of RNA sequencing with you.
It's been a pleasure sharing these insights with you and our listeners.
It feels like I have a whole new appreciation for this technology and how it can change our world.
It's a game changer, that's for sure.
I can't wait to see what the future holds for RNA sequencing.
The possibilities are truly endless. From personalized medicine to protecting our environment, RNA sequencing has the potential to make a positive impact on so many aspects of our lives.
And if we've learned, this field is constantly pushing the boundaries of what's possible. Who knows what incredible breakthroughs are coming next?
That's what makes it so exciting.
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive. A huge thank you to our listeners for joining us on this journey of discovery.
Until next time, stay curious.
The future is full of possibilities, and RNA sequencing is just one of the tools we have to make that future a brighter one.